You can see right here that gap in the SPY, thinking that we could possibly get that pullback, fill that gap down here to that pivot. We get stuck at this pivot right now, and then we get that gap fill here on the SPY, on the ES. The ES putting us down there in the 40s. So watching this 52 level here, if we break through 52s, looking for a move down to the 40s. I'm thinking 52 is going to break here. Looking for that gap fill here on the SPY, like we talked about earlier, down there to the 40s. We got the VWAP on the ES down to the 44s. So 44 being a good target from this short, from the break below 52s. Liquidity coming in here right now at the 48s, trying to hold it up here on the Bookmap. You can see all that liquidity sitting there, 48s, trying to hold it up there. And the market's selling off right now. You can see we got stuck there at that pivot point. That was exactly what we were looking for. We talked about it before the market opened, this plan of getting stuck there at the pivot and pulling back here. Right now, looking for this move down there, 45s or lower. We can try to touch this pivot point down there, 393.50 area on the pivots. Currently short here, looking for this move down. There we go, down to the 45s. Beautiful, still holding short. I'm looking for a little bit lower. Give me a little bit more through the 44s next, down to the 40s. Touch that pivot, come on. I'm gonna cover right there at 44.75. Still could go lower, still could get down here and touch that pivot, but I don't want to be greedy. It was up 800 bucks there, so just taking that profit and look for the next opportunity here. Come on, like this was another one of those simple days. What do we have there in the pivots? We talked about this already. The pivot right there got stuck at open. We have that gap in the chart. We talked about all this stuff before the market opened. If you're sitting here and you're like, I don't understand, why did he short? Why did this happen? I don't know. I just don't know what else to tell you. I can't help you. There was that move. We said if we hold the pivot resistance, we get this move down here to this next pivot, and that's exactly what we got. So if we can just break this clean, I think we can get down there into the 30s, like 38s again, test that low from overnight. Still holding there at the VWAP on the ES right now. It's funny because this is literally exactly what we talked about pre-market happening. That pullback to the VWAP there at open. Get that gap fill, and then we see what happens when we get the VWAP bounce. So still looking weak here. Like if we get this break through this VWAP area, or VWAP acting as support, the Nasdaq's dumping back. If we get back below 11,500 on the Nasdaq, sell through here. Beautiful. Looking for this move down below the 40s now. Can we get 38s? Come on. 40 bounce. Looking for 38s. Beautiful. Getting filled at 38. Absolutely on the spot right now, boys and girls. You can see that move down there, getting short there at the 44s and covering down there at 38s. That was a perfect cover down there at the 38s. If you didn't get covered there at 38s, well, you should have seen that there was that support there on the chart, 38s. There was no reason to not get covered on that short if you weren't gonna. If you were short from this little move up, if you didn't get covered at 38s, well, you're just asking for it. You're just playing with fire at that point. So we got the whole team green. The whole team making money, baby. Look at that pushback up off the 38s. Wow. Good thing we got covered there. I got covered right at 38. And look at that squeeze back up 10 points after getting covered there. What a beautiful bounce back. Look at that. Push right back off that pivot point there. I was a little too excited to get covered down there, and look at that move right back up there off that pivot. So now the question is, okay, we're getting back above the VWAP here. Can we get this thing to break out? If we get back above this pivot, what I would like to see, this is what I would like to see play out. We get a push above the pivot, we pull back, we turn that pivot into support, and then we get that move higher. So our idea of buying would be, we get above this pivot here, we get the retrace, we turn the pivot into support, and then we get long at that point. But that's only if we can break above this pivot. There's no point in getting long right now. Like there's just no point in getting long until we break above this pivot. You're pushing up into that previous area of resistance. We know there's resistance there on the chart. You got that pivot right there. We just bounced off this pivot. I mean, this was, if you were trying to get long, you were maybe getting long down here, but you definitely don't want to get long right there at that pivot right now, even though it can go higher. Let's just give it a little bit of time to see what happens, get that pivot to break VWAP down there. So I'm going to be watching. If we break over, we'll say break over 58s here, could get long at that point. But the problem is we got a lot of stuff going on right here. We got this resistance here at the 60s. I don't love this setup for a breakout because we know that that resistance is right there at the 61s area getting stuck there. It's kind of a tricky one. Could be a little risky. getting long here at the 55s and look for that move through the 60s next. But got my stop at the 55s. Like I said, I'm not in love with this setup, so I might just take profit pretty quickly here, like maybe 61s. If we get this little up, it's still squeezing, so maybe give it a little bit more time. See if we push through that high now. We pushed through 61 pretty quickly, so I'm going to let it ride here. And see if we can't push through the high of day, or the high from the morning there at the 60s, 65s. Look for a push up to the 68s now. I don't like this setup right here. It's a little dangerous. Just taking a lock in that profit for $700.